Um, Maybe I'll preface this by saying I'm streaming live. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Lucky Dog Podcast. This is your host, Elias Rush. Currently, I'm streaming live right now on Twitch, playing a little Grand Theft Auto, and we're just discussing the Midnight Gospel, Season 1, Episode 8, I believe. Episode 8, yes. Um, for anyone that has no idea what the Midnight Gospel is, the Midnight Gospel is basically a animated television Netflix show for adults, but it is created by the same creators as Adventure Time. And so I've given my full review on the first episode, I believe. And if you want to just a little bit more background information, go check that out. I can link it for you. Um, Also, if there's been anything funny with the links recently, I've changed the URL codes to on everything. So if you aren't able to get to the new links on in the show notes, if I haven't changed them yet, I've tried to go back and change the majority of them, but just take out the word the. The majority of the SoundCloud links and stuff have something, SoundCloud slash the Lucky Dog podcast at, whatever podcast you're listening to. Just remove the word the, and that should take you to whatever podcast you want. Um, but I've tried to go back in the show notes and change just about all of them, but it's like 300 something podcasts, so takes a while. So, anyways, the Midnight Gospel episode 8, season 1, episode 8. First of all, let me talk about the entire season roundup real quick. If you hear my hands kind of going, it's because I'm gaming right now, but yeah, so the overall season as a whole, if for anyone that has no idea what I'm talking about, it's this like trippy hallucinogenic style animation. Literally, things are just transforming into things. Faces are melting and turning into universes and explosions and LSD trippage, and it's one of the most psychedelic looking television shows I could you know compare it to like Rick and Morty, but even Rick and Morty seems to have more of a stilted, like grounded style. Not not that Family Guy is a stilted style, but everyone remembers the Family Guy house. Everybody remembers certain locations that are in animations that really ground us. It's like, okay, so this is their house, this is their work, this is the this show is almost like improv in a way. The show style is taken from, like I said in the first episode review, all 8 episodes are taken, their audio taken from podcasts and turned into animation. And so at first I thought that would only work on like short form, like stories. When people are talking about, you can animate the story, but an entire podcast, I was like, I don't know about that. So this this series actually works to the benefit of talking and discussing and expressing podcast as a visual concept. And so I think the majority of the season works pretty well. Some episodes work better than others. I love the artistic style of the animation. It's beautiful, and in a way that it makes me want to go back and revisit it, because I had a complaint that the first episode left me in a way that, yes, this is extremely visual information. So the actual structure is, it's like we're following this guy named Clancy, and Clancy is voiced by the the producer and creator, I believe, of Adventure Time. Let me get all that just to clear that. So Clancy is voiced by Duncan Trussell, who is one of the writers and I think showrunners, um, as well as it's directed by Pendleton Ward, who is also responsible for Adventure Time as well. Um, anyways, anyone that doesn't know Adventure Time, it's essentially a more narrative story based, but it also has this young boy and his dog going on these adventures and stuff like that, and these trippy, hallucinogenic, places. But they're a lot more for kids. It's kids oriented in Adventure Time. Midnight Gospel is almost like having, a really psychedelic conversation, a really deep conversation with just psychedelic visuals going on, and in a way that is. My first complaint was that in the first episode that what they're talking about does not correlate to the visuals that are going on screen, in my opinion. Now I couldn't always grasp onto the things that they were talking about. I found the things that they were talking about a little bit distracting when it came to trying to focus on the visuals. So it was like I couldn't focus on both. Now, with saying that, I think certain episodes worked better than others because they were able. It's like they found their footing in what they were trying to do. They're. Oh, hold on, son. Oh, get this. Oh, I'm out of bullets. All bullets. All bullets. All bullets. Where'd he go? Where'd he go? Oh, oh! This is the dangers of recording live and trying to do a midnight shuffle podcast, midnight gospel podcast. Sorry. Anyway, so like I said, I was finding the conversations and visuals to have, two separate meanings. I was not finding them to correlate in one another. They were, for me, at first. Now, the first episode was talking about drug addiction and zombies taking over the world. So clearly, there's always a big connection between zombies and some sort of quote unquote infection happening of some sort. Now that infection could be like consumerism, or it could be drug addiction. It could be something that just takes over a mass population. It's easy to do. It's easy to visualize through zombies. The metaphor. Now I don't feel like every show had that metaphor to its benefit. That was a problem for me. Now the thing was, I found myself in some of the adventures that Clancy goes on. So Clancy essentially has to stick his head in what looks like the simulator ass cheeks to go to these different worlds. And when he goes to these different worlds, he is able to interview people at these worlds. And all of these worlds, the worlds are like collapsing on some level. It's kind of confusing. I don't know, but they're on the point of an apocalyptic breakdown or something. Hold on, let me get a little bit of water. So, anyways, this apocalyptic breakdown that's happening in all these worlds has someone Clancy is going to interview. And so the interview style starts about 5 minutes after the show starts. So I've pretty much said a recap of the entire season, of how the entire season works. You get about 5 minutes of story of him fucking around, Clancy fucking around in his own place, and the simulator ass cheeks computer is just like he's trying to tell Clancy what to do, and Clancy obviously does not listen, and that's gonna bite him in the ass eventually, because you gotta do something to the computer to make sure it continues to work, and ultimately is going to bite him in the butt in one of the episodes. Actually, that was one of my favorite episodes. The episodes are not narratively based; they're almost just like train of thought. Like visual images that are going along with what the podcast is. So Clancy visits the world. He starts to interview someone that is in this in one of these worlds. Now the first episode was the president, and it ended up being like Dr. Drew or something, and they were talking about drugs and addictions and all that stuff for a while. A couple episodes in, each episode kind of has like a loose topic of what they talk about, but I feel like some episodes obviously work better than others. Now, this eighth episode felt like they had the perfect conversation, the perfect narrative structure, and I was just entrenched in the conversation for the longest time. I thought that this conversation with Duncan Trussell's mother, I guess. I'm assuming Duncan Trussell's mother. Yeah, yeah. I assume it's her. Um, let me see if I can get her name. Um, uh, huh. I guess her name would be Mrs. Trussell, but I can't find Dean and Fing. Is that might be her name? I'm not exactly sure. Let me see. Let's just say it's that's her name. But anyway, Duncan's mother. I can't find her name. I guess that's her name. Um. Wow. Even thinking about it is kind of moving. Well, now one thing to tackle this eighth episode, I I was like, I had heard some things about it. You know, they were like, wow, it's quite a moving episode. I was like, a moving episode on the Midnight Gospel? Are you serious right now? Like, there's nothing moving about the first 7 episodes really at all for me personally, unless you had grasped onto one of those really high concept um, uh, conversations they were talking about. But like, I almost timed it. It felt like 15 to 20 minutes in, once Clancy was in the world that he was interviewing for the first 7 episodes, it would lose me. It would lose me in a way that I was like, I have no idea what they're talking about. And then they somehow spurred off into another topic of some sort. And it almost every time it lost me just because I was like, I would actively try to like listen into the conversation. And I was like, I have no idea what they're talking about. And then these crazy visuals are happening in the background, and nothing seemed to be correlating for me personally, unless they were like, life's just a bunch of meat mashed together, man, and then they're showing them being mashed together as meat. It's like, okay, so that obviously makes sense, but there was a lot of times I was like, I don't even know what is going on. Like the visuals just weren't matching for me what they were talking about. Now, episode 8 did everything to a T. Now, it made the pacing in it was perfect, because one of the things I was trying to figure out what was going on in the worlds that Clancy is visiting, when his head is between like ass cheeks visiting these different worlds in the simulator. I'm trying to figure out, can he be hurt in some way, because he's being like poked and prodded, and it's I guess he's in like a VR simulator in a way, but in some worlds it felt like he was feeling pain, and in others it didn't feel like, it seemed like he was at all. Like he was not unconcerned about it. And so this episode actually put the pacing to it, because it showed his real world having stakes. Somebody's trying to shut down his simulator because it's an illegal simulator or something like that. He has illegal ass cheek simulator, so you got to watch out for those. And the cops are cracking down on his trippy hipster. I was gonna say hillbilly. I don't know why I said that. Hipster trailer he has living out in the mountains. But anyway, so we got the pacing. It's kicked up to a T. We have the best interview from all episodes. It's Duncan Trussell's mother. I was like, okay, so by now I want you to have watched this episode. I kind of feel like there's kind of some mic drops that happen throughout it, but that this last episode has one of the most interesting characters, his Clancy's mother, and the real character, the creator's mother, and it also has the visuals, so that's like a trifecta right there. I'm like, okay, so we're kicking it up to a T right now. We got an interesting conversation with an interesting host, and someone we can kind of relate to in a way. So, and the visuals are kicking up to a notch too. So it's like everything's hitting to a T. The visuals are correlating with what they're talking about, and him and his mother have a real deep emotional conversation about life and death. and going on the course of life and death. And I think about 10 minutes into the world that they're visiting, um, Clancy's mother is talking about being diagnosed with what I believe was stage 4 cancer, and being told multiple times that she was going to die in 6 months. And the things that were sticking out in this conversation were the most meaningful out of all the conversations, because life and death obviously is probably one of the most relatable things we could talk about, given the majority of us, are experiencing it. But the conversation of them discussing about life and death, and you know Duncan and Duncan as Clancy, having to show emotion is just so left field from what I was expecting in this show. I was not expecting to be moved by a show with this little hipster trailer and a trippy farm on a universe with things just going absolute haywire and hallucinogenic nightmares in some situations. And I never thought, I don't think I've ever had an real emotional reaction from Rick and Morty. Now, I remember a couple times I was like, wow, that was a really deep episode. I was like, I was not expecting that. But then they would come back and like, wabba labba da bob or wabba labba who bob and burp in the mic or something like that. And it would kind of retract from what was going on in a way. But as far as like BoJack Horseman, as like F is for Family, as what do we got? A lot of these like real life animated comedies that are kind of conceptually crazy but like contemporarily really resonate with a lot of people is something special, honestly. And I think that having an animated, being able to relate to something animated is something special. And the conversation that Clancy or Duncan Trussell has with his mother during this is so moving. I think I was bawling the last 10 minutes of the episode. I had no doubt was just like, this is some moving ass shit. And the visuals of what's going on is it shows his mother aging throughout the episode. And I'm having to I'm having to deal with something with my father right now, which is kind of in the same situation. He's doesn't have cancer to my knowledge, hopefully, knock on wood. But he has some real health problems going on. And my folks are not as young as they once were. They're pushing their 70s, and I'm starting to really see that. And so this was a really moving it was a really moving episode, seeing the aging of the characters throughout this. And you can probably hear it in my voice just talking about it, just thinking about it. It evokes some real emotion from me. And I think what benefits this episode specifically is the fact that they're able to express these animations in a way that you can't do in a live action show. You wouldn't want to. You can't show your mother aging exponentially in a way that. I mean, you probably could, but it would be extremely expensive. I mean, this is probably the most quote unquote real I've seen an animation get. They're showing the aging progressions of both of the characters. And actually of course they have to go extremely trippy, and they showed, I think they keep this episode the least trippy, and they use the least amount of hallucinogenic imagery with a good reason and good purpose, because the visuals are him and his mother kind of going down the tunnel of life and looking in the windows of, you know, different 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 memories and stuff like that. And as they're going along, they're aging and they're traveling through the universe. And there is just a real touching scene of both Clancy growing older, and as well as his mother growing older, in this kind of repeated pattern, in a way. And it is, yeah, it's quite moving, and you can probably, I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, but it it got me in a way that I was like, ooh, I was not expecting that. That makes me want to recommend this episode specifically. And I wished all the episodes had hit on this level. Now I don't want them to have a bunch of people on there um, that are having to share their stories about life and death. I mean, that's obviously moving, but it was, there's so many reasons that this episode works. It's the conversation between two people that have an emotional connection. It's someone that he is someone, the host understands his guest and the guest understands the host, to levels that no one else would, obviously. And so yeah, this was a very moving final episode. They leave you in a way that it's like, oh my goodness, is the simulator blown up? And he's, you know, traveling alongside all of the characters he's met, and all the you know, a bunch of avatars that he's gotten to play as. It's you know, it all floods back. I want to go back and rewatch the episode. It just even thinking about it and talking about it has me kind of emotional. Because it is just a really touching episode. That, you know, they have the little bears that are kind of helping them travel throughout the universe. I love the they did have to throw some, you know, not hallucinogenic, but you know, some weirdness with his not weirdness, but it's like this idea of like reincarnation, I guess, in a way that, you know, they show like Clancy growing to a certain age and his mother growing, you know, growing old and then, you know, dying, and, you know, folding into the energy, and the energy, you know, going eventually reincarnating into Clancy, and Clancy literally births his mother, and it's like, oh my goodness, he has like a baby version of his mother, and she's like still talking in the same voice as his mother, so they're like traveling alongside, you know, with each other, and he's still growing older, and she's starting to you know, come back to the same age as she was at the beginning of the episode, and Clancy is experiencing growing older as a you know, an older man as well. And then they, you know, they sit back and you kind of watch the universe, and this this ever ominous look at this beautiful, you know, black hole of death, or metaphor of death. And it's extremely moving. Them kind of transforming into planets, and yeah, it's hard for me to talk about, actually. But yeah, the transformations were quite moving, and I think this episode hits on all the levels that it needs to. Yeah, I didn't mean to get so deep, but it is a moving episode, especially if you have people that are in the same situation, in a way. And even if you don't have people in the same situation, I'm sure it's still a moving episode as well. I don't want to downplay that. But yeah, when animation hits on a level that it's unexpected, it you know, it kicks it up in that high gear. I mean, I don't generally give miniseries, you know, numbered reviews or anything like that, because I think each episode's kind of different in a way. But this last episode is undoubtedly the best. If you haven't seen any of it and you're like, I don't know what he's talking about, this dude's talking about like animation, midnight gospel shit, this looks like some hallucinogenic shit, just either watch the first episode and the last episode, or just watch the last episode, because it's totally worth it. You can jump in it, and I think you'll still be fine. But yeah, so I appreciate everyone watching Look at Dog Podcast. I'm not really sure what we are about to do. Need to kind of do some errands around the house. Need to get some food. I'm starving, Marvin. Was not expecting all of that. Oh, maybe I should close out the podcast real quick. Thank you for listening to The Midnight Gospel, Season 1, Episode 8 review. The episode title is called Mouse of Silver. And so, yes, that was a very moving episode. Sorry to kind of get I guess emotional sounds a little bit strong, but it is a moving episode. It's hard to talk about when you actually have a family that is going through some tough times as well. But everyone's going through something. Everyone's got something on their mind. They're an insecurity or whatever else. I think there's an episode for everyone's got an addiction. Everyone's got some sort of problem, and I think each one of these episodes try to do a good way of tackling that as best to their ability. I think season 2 is going to really improve upon this series, because I really do feel like the first couple episodes they're kind of trying to gain their balance or find their balance and figure out what exactly this should be. So check it out. Midnight Gospel. Check out the rest of the Lucky Dog podcast reviews. Links in the show notes. Remember, if the links aren't working, remove the word "the" in the link, and you should be fine. It should take you to wherever, or let me know if you can't find something. I'll email it to you. LuckyDogPodcast@gmail.com. PayPal.me/the Lucky Dog Podcast to support. We are live streaming at Lucky Dog Podcast on Twitch. We have the Discord. You can join us in the Discord, do some chats. Facebook, we share hilarious videos and other memes on there. So thank you for watching, listening, Lucky Dog Podcast. Take it easy. That was a difficult review. I might not actually do a rerun of that, because that was a little bit more difficult than I was expecting, honestly. It's a moving ass episode, even to just think about it. I'm not sure if I want to go back and watch it yet. I recommended my mother to go check it out, because I know my dad's not. My dad's definitely not going to. My dad doesn't want to do anything right now. He's really bad shape right now. Not exactly sure what it is. Sometimes it feels weird because I go over and try to help, bring some stuff, and he doesn't like being helped. It's like he craves attention, but he doesn't want to be helped. It's very odd. Maybe it's the middle child syndrome. I don't know. You really learn a lot about your family when you grow older. I feel like when you are, a young buck, I feel like when you're just growing older, you look at everyone kind of the same. You're like, oh, that's Uncle Johnny, or that's Uncle Pete, or that's Uncle Mark, or something like that. What? You paid the mechanic for the day. You paid your $500 daily property utility charge. You paid your executive $300. What? What is going on? I did not do that. Y'all can't see it because it's my face is covering the map and everything. What the fuck, though? I don't know. I gotta take a break from Grand Theft. Let's get me out of here. How do I go to the regular menu? Oh, I gotta call